Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So we're continuing through the Asuro manual. Now that we've covered some of the motor functions, we're now on to page 61, the Asuro manual, and we come up to this example code here. Copy and paste it into our code. We need to clean it up a bit. So let's get rid of apostrophe marks, paste them. The ones in the book, for whatever reason, they come out like not the actual apostrophe. Just have to make sure you change them here, here, and up at the top as well. Cool. Okay. So in this program, they attempt to teach us loops as well as getting us familiar with the motor functions and the positive functions. Now, but in reality, it doesn't work that well, and I'm not going to go too deep into why. We'll cover that in the intermediary playlist. But for now, I'll just talk about something that you have to think about when you're dealing with the Asuro. Like I said, when you're dealing with actual hardware, there are some challenges. So from a learning perspective, I found it super confusing, which is why in the previous videos we went over the motor functions and the pole switch and the loops before getting to this bit of code. So in this video we'll break down the code. We'll skip over some bits as I feel they're not really appropriate for a beginner level. Okay, so let's get started. Let's make some space here. What I like to do is I like to make space between my while loops, just so I can any conditional statements, I like to make space between them so I see what's going on around them. We've also got lots of comments here which are a bit, we can see status LED. We know what that does. We don't need a comment for that. Yeah, same again here. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's go through the code. So we've included the header file. Obviously, we know about that now. We've got our int main. We've got our motors going forward at a speed of 120. Is they've put here around half speed. We know what that does. That's fine. Both engines full. Cool. Okay. So status LED green. And then what we're saying here is while the pole switch is equal to 0. So if you remember, pole switch is obviously the switches on the front of the Asuro. If they're not pressed in, then there's no electrical signal. Hence, they hold a value. The function holds a value of 0. If they are pressed, then each switch has a different value: 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, etc. So when they are pressed in, the value of the pole switch will go above 0. So what we're saying here is, while the value of the pole switch is 0, then do what's in here, right? So while the value of the pole switch is 0, do this bit of code. What that basically means is, if there's no collision, there's nothing directly in front of the Asuro, keep moving forward basically. So what we're going to do here is we're saying this write is a function I don't really want to go into, but it's basically writing to the screen from the Asuro saying all okay, all okay, all okay. And we'll use that in the intermediate level, but I don't want to cover it in this level just because it's easier if we just stick to just coding the Asuro and not worrying about printing to a screen as well. What I'm going to do is we're going to skip over this bit for now, but just know that if you wanted to, you can read it in the Asuro manual as well. Okay, so then we're saying that while the pole switch there's no collision, then we're going to write to the screen. Then, if this condition is not true, we're going to jump out of this while loop, right? We're going to come back down to here, yeah? So once the condition, meaning that once the pole switch is no longer 0, which means what? That there's been a collision, we're going to skip to here. So what's next? What's next is motor speed 0. What we're saying is that while the pole switch is equal to 0, just keep printing to the screen, meaning while there's no collision, print to the screen. As soon as there is a collision, then do this next bit of code. So this next bit of code is 0, 0 motor speeds, meaning stop the motors, and then turn the status LED red. With this code, even if you moved the object out of the way, and then there was no longer a collision, the Asuro wouldn't carry on driving. It would just stop. So what happens next is they've got it going into an infinite while loop. If you remember, think about any program, the job of the program, it steps through. It will step down from here downwards through the program like this. So once it sends the status LED red, it then steps into this while loop here, which is an infinite while loop. So what we're saying is, as soon as there's been a collision, You're coming down here, you turn off the motors to make it steadily red, and then you just print into the screen, ouch, over and over again, ouch, and it will just do that forever. Ouch, 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 ouch. That's it. That's the end of the program. In reality, if you're not actually using the write function, which I'm not using right now, you can actually just get rid of this while loop. It doesn't actually serve much of a purpose. If you run that code, it'll do exactly the same thing. Let's discuss some of the issues really with the code. So as you can see, the Asuro, as I'm starting the program, it's crashing straight away and it's going literally to red. So it's jumping straight to this part of the code straight away. Why is it doing that? Because as you're starting the program, it's getting false positives from the pole switches. And this happens with all sorts of switches. You have switch bounce when you press it. It might detect a few false readings, for example. And so you need to try and deal with this. In the real world, you don't always get a clean 0. So you might end up having a pole switch that it's being detected as a closed circuit and hence it's reading a value of 8 or whatever. And there are ways around it, but we'll have to cover those in the more intermediary or advanced sections of this programming tutorial. So for now, just know that if you're getting this, then there are ways around it, but it is challenging. And what I would say as well is if you are struggling with that, then leave a comment down below, and I'll tell you exactly how to deal with it. And if I have made a video by then, I'll link to the video as well. But as you can see, what's basically happening is that the Asuro is turning on, and then it's detecting a false positive, and it goes, all right, program's over then. And so one of the simpler ways to deal with this is to basically, instead of the current program, when you run the Asuro, it's saying I'm just going to drive until there's a collision, and when there's a collision, I'm going to stop and exit and finish the program. What we could do instead is say drive, and so long as there's no collision, keep driving, and if there is a collision, then stop until there's no longer a collision. That until there's no longer a collision is basically just done by adding a while loop. So let's add a while loop. Cool. So what we'll do is we'll put the whole program into a while loop, right? Then we are going to have to change the condition. So what we do is we've got while pole switch is equal to 0, all okay. We make it while pole switch is not equal to 0, right? Stop the program. So now what we're saying here is run the program, drive the motors forward, make it green. As soon as there is a collision, then stop. And as long as there's a collision, stay stopped. But the moment there's no longer a collision, come back out to here and then carry on through the program, again driving forward. Let's see how that looks. Cool, that looks good to me. So that's it for me, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.